Good evening and welcome to the Robert J. Dole Institute of Politics here at the University of Kansas. My name is Michael Redlick and I am a member of the Dole Institute Student Advisory Board, the official student organization of the Institute. I'm a freshman here at the university studying political science, as well as a proud member of the debate and mock trial teams respectively. The Dole Institute of Politics strives to promote a new era of leadership that uses politics to bring people together through opportunities that emphasize bipartisan cooperation, public service, and civic engagement, as well as engagement that is inspired by the leadership and service of Senators Bob and Elizabeth Dole, and the enduring civic contributions of the greatest generation. The Student Advisory Board is an integral part of the mission, providing members with experiential learning and job opportunities, access to financial assistance, and networking opportunities with our special guests. If you are a student here at KU and would like to join, please email us at dolesab@ku.edu or speak with a student worker after the program. Before we begin, here's a few reminders that I would like to take a moment to share with all of you. Following tonight's program, a video recording will be available to stream on demand on our YouTube channel, where you can access a full catalog of our past programming. A loop hearing system is available to use if you have a T-coil hearing aid, and the Institute also has a limited number of listening devices. If you have questions about the loop system or anytime have any difficulty hearing, please alert one of our staff members. Please take a moment to familiarize yourself with the marked exits in the room. In the event of an emergency, please make your way to the nearest marked exit. Please follow the instructions of staff members and exit the building if necessary. Following tonight's interview, a limited number of audience questions will be answered. And if you are part of our virtual audience, you can submit questions to our email at dolequestions@ku.edu. The Dole Institute aims to foster civil and respectful discourse around important and often difficult topics. Please phrase your questions with that in mind. Finally, I'd like to remind you to please silence and turn off your cell phones or place them in Do Not Disturb. Now, please join me in welcoming Director of the Dole Institute, Audrey Coleman.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening. This is a very special occasion for many, many reasons. I'm going to go over a few of them right now. For one, KU homecoming, and we're welcoming back a distinguished KU alum and Jerry Seib. Jerry, we're so pleased to have you back. We are also welcoming our annual meeting of our Dole Institute Board of Advisors, and we have several members of our Board of Advisors in the audience with us tonight. If you all wouldn't mind standing or waving so we can recognize you and thank you for your service. Additionally, in honor of Homecoming Week, we're celebrating the 20th anniversary, get this guys, 20 years of the Student Advisory Board here at the Dole Institute. Michael is one of the newest class of the Student Advisory Board, but we have many distinguished alumni in the audience. You guys, would you please stand up and be recognized? I think some of you are being shy. I was just in the room with you earlier. And we're also marking 1 year out from the midterm election, which is the topic of our program this evening. I want to thank Dolph Simons and the Simons Family Fund for making our program with Jerry and Amy Walter possible. A few notes to be sure, since we have a full house tonight, especially important, I want to make sure that you come back to the Dole Institute next Wednesday, or 2 Wednesdays in 2 weeks, November 12th at 4 p.m. We're going to have our fall 2025 fellow, Joni Wickham, with her last installment of her discussion group, High Stakes Leadership, a leadership case study in innovation, resiliency, and impact. We're going to welcome Wichita, Kansas Mayor Lily Wu for that conversation. So I hope you'll join us in person or online. The following day, November 13th at 7 p.m., former Dole Fellow Chandram Gashi will return to the Institute to moderate a conversation with Pierre Siminovich, the sitting ambassador, Croatia's sitting ambassador to the U.S. Their discussion will focus on Croatia's experience in public diplomacy in the United States and examine key aspects of the U.S.-Croatia bilateral cooperation. And then to round out our season this fall on Thursday, November 20th at 6:30, special time for the fall edition of our Counselors, featuring Dole Institute visiting fellows and attorneys Ed Duckers and Pedro Aragongaray debating should the Electoral College be abolished. We're doing this in partnership with our friends at Washburn University, including the Washburn Law School Dean and Professor Jeffrey Jackson, Professor of Political Science Lindsay Modelmog of Washburn University, author Tara Ross, and Seib, our state's executive director, Trent England. That will be a fascinating and timely conversation. I forgot to mention one other exciting opportunity that we're celebrating, marking tonight. This is the first time we are live streaming simultaneously on C-SPAN. So all of you out in the world, welcome to the Dole Institute here in Lawrence, Kansas at the University of Kansas. I'll now introduce fully our visiting fellow, Jerry Seib, former Washington executive editor of the Wall Street Journal. In his 45 years working with the Journal, he wrote the weekly Capitol Journal column, reported from the Middle East, covered the White House, and moderated 3 presidential debates. He's interviewed every president since Ronald Reagan. His guest this evening is Amy Walter, who is the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Cook Political Report, where she provides analysis of issues, trends, and events that shape the political environment. She's a regular contributor to PBS NewsHour, which I think most of you know her from. She provides weekly political analysis for the Popular Politics Monday segment and is a featured contributor for their election and convention special coverage events. Another special thing about Amy is that she was an inaugural fellow at the University of Chicago's Institute of Politics and is a current member of their board of advisors. So she knows her stuff in every way possible and is just the perfect guest for us this evening. Amy, thank you so much for being with us.
Happy to be here.
Thank you all for being with us this evening, and now I'll turn it over to Jerry and Amy.
Thank you. Thanks. So it's nice to be back. Nice to see you all here. It's a big crowd, and I'd like to think it's not only because there's no World Series game to watch tonight, but that you're fascinated with our topic. And it's an important topic, right? So the midterm elections. Next week will be exactly 1 year before the 2026 midterm elections. And I think these are important elections, so let me just try to establish quickly the baseline about why they're important. So we right now have a Congress, Senate and House that are almost completely evenly divided between the two parties. In the House, the Republicans have the smallest majority since 1931. If the Democrats flip 3 seats in the midterm, they will take control of the House. The Senate is a 53-47 Republican majority. If the Democrats manage to flip 4 seats there, they will take control of the House. And so, Amy, it's kind of all on the line, including the Trump agenda. Is that the right way to look at this?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Jerry. It's great to be back chatting with you. We've talked a lot over the years, and so this is a fun place to be able to go ahead and do that. You know, the battle for control of Congress is something that is obviously very consequential, especially if your party currently has all 3 branches, and it's a lot easier to get a whole lot done when you don't have to negotiate with your opposition. But we also know we have a president who's been doing most of the work through executive authority. And so while we have one big piece of legislation that passed on party line vote, the big beautiful bill, for the most part, the work that's been done in Washington for these last 8 months has been through the president's use of executive authority. And of course, we're going to find out in a few months, the Supreme Court is going to weigh in on some of that, or at least give us maybe better contours, better understanding of just how far this president and the presidents that come after him can use that executive authority. I think the big issue, really, if you're just thinking it in pure political terms, the reason that Republicans would not like to lose the House, the reason that the White House would not like to lose the House, is because if Democrats get control, then they have control of the committees and the committees that do the investigating, and there will be a series of oversight hearings, probably one every 5 minutes, digging into the Trump administration. And that the president also knows quite well the last time Democrats were in charge, while he was there, they impeached him twice. Yeah. So that's really what I think more more so is at stake.
So it's personal as well.
I think
as
it's
political.
yes, it's much more than it's much more personal than it is political. Again, if when in the old days when we would talk about why would it matter if one party gained the House or lost the Senate, or usually we would think about it in legislative terms, right? Oh, well, this now is going to stymie the president's ability to get X, Y, and Z over the finish line. Or, oh boy, now this president, we remember the days of Bill Clinton and triangulation. He had to go and try to figure out how he's going to work with the Republican Congress. I don't think we don't live in that world.
And a Democratic House or Senate couldn't take us back to that world,
No.
in your estimation?
No.
Yeah.
That, the idea of the two sides figuring out, all right, well, this is a priority and let's work on a bipartisan bill to address it, just seems pretty far-fetched.
So history should tell us what's likely to happen next year. And we have a slide, I think, that shows this. What should happen next year is the president's party should lose a bunch of seats, because that's what happens. If you look back, in 18 of the 20 midterms since World War II, the president's party has lost seats in the House, and you can sort of see the red lines up there, by an average, not just of a few seats, but 27 seats. So it would be normal for a president's party to get whacked.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not in that space now.
Well, so I'd like to say midterm elections, there are three options if you're the party in the White House. It's going to be bad, it's going to be really bad, or it's going to be catastrophically bad.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that is likely. Those two blips that you can see on there before, but one was right after 9/11, so understandably the country was dealing with the aftermath of that horrible terrorist attack, and then the one right before that was 1998, in the middle of Bill Clinton's impeachment hearing, actually. The one thing that those two men did have in common, though, was the fact that their approval ratings were in the 60s.
Yeah.
And so that was usually the mark, again, when we were covering politics in the old days, that if
You're making us sound so old here,
I know,
Amy, you and me.
Jerry.
I mean,
we are, these students.
I know.
You guys were
Bill
old
Clinton,
when Bill they weren't alive. Okay?
I tell
Clearly.
people I covered the Bush White House, and they think that means I'm
W.
really old. And I
Yeah.
tell them I covered George H.W. Bush's White House, and then
Right,
they
in
think
1872,
yeah, right. Just after Millard Fillmore.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
That's right. So yes, it should. So anyway, those two presidents were popular. This president right now, his approval rating somewhere around 43%, with 54% disapproving. So that is not a high mark. It's also pretty much where he was, where Donald Trump was going into his 2018 midterm election. They lost 40 seats, the Republicans did that year. It's pretty close to where Joe Biden was going into his first midterm election. His party lost 9 seats. So the one thing that is getting in the way of this being a traditional midterm election is the fact that we are now redrawing seats at a pace that none of us have ever seen before.
So let's go there. I mean, that tells you that the White House, Trump world is worried about.
Because it's historically,
Right.
And I've been using this analogy as a way to think about as a way to think about what this redistricting could or couldn't be. So if you're the party in the White House, you know that same chart, you know what's headed your way. You say, much like somebody that is preparing their house for a storm, you say, well, I know it's coming, I just don't know how big this storm is going to be. Is it going to be category 1? Is it going to be category 5? We're going to fill up as many sandbags as possible and build a little, protection around our house. And so each one of those districts, one of those red seats, think of those as a sandbag. And how many can you pile up to protect from the storm that's coming? Now, if it's just a category 1 storm, getting 4, 5, 6 seats through redistricting, which maybe they can get up to get a little bit higher than that. Now Democrats would need 10 seats or 7 seats. Republicans only picked up 9 in the last midterm election, even with a really unpopular president. So you build it high enough and the environment's not really terrible, that may be enough. But if it's a category 3 or higher storm, they don't have enough sandbags, and it will come over the top.
So you guys, by you guys I mean the Cook Political Report with Amy Walter, and by the way, if you don't read it, it is the best, most objective, clearest way to look at American politics, particularly congressional politics. And you guys have been keeping track of this. So we're talking now about 5 states where Republican legislatures are redistricting, maybe more.
Oh, there's more. So
and by your count, it's 8 to 12 seats they might create out of this process.
It changes every day. As you well know, Kansas is also in the news. There's talk about and Kansas. There's only 1 seat that they can get. So there are a lot of places like this between Kansas, Indiana. There's talk about going into New Hampshire. Ohio. Now there's been a development there which was actually quite surprising, that a deal cut between Republicans and Democrats for a map that was not as terrible for Democrats as we had assumed it would be. So before the Ohio map came out, our range of potential pickups, so the number of seats that Republicans could get, would be somewhere between 6 and 9. Now we'll revise that downward a bit, maybe 5 to 8, or depending on what the final Ohio map looks like. But Florida is another big wild card. It makes sense politically if you're just looking at this at where can Republicans go in states that are controlled by Republicans, where they can redraw maps that wouldn't put their own incumbents in danger. Florida would be one of those places. Now they do have a constitutional amendment that is
details.
So the Supreme Court in the state would need to weigh in on that. But you could see, look, if the Supreme Court rules against them, then now this number of sandbags keeps going down, because California votes next week.
And they could claw back if Democrats in California manage to, as they probably will, pass this amendment, and then they can redraw their seats and claw back maybe 5 seats. Then you're down to a handful.
So you just kind of look at Texas and California then basically evening out. Think about that that way. And then it really comes down to the Florida, Ohio, Indiana, maybe Kansas, Missouri, North Carolina. And there's, but now Democrats have also gotten back in the game in my state of Virginia. They are going to most likely hold a special session. They have to do a little bit like what California had to do, because this is a constitutional amendment that they're going to have to undo. But they are fast tracking it so that there will be a special election in Virginia, probably in April. And then redraw lines there. When you said how many states are in it, I have to go through and think which states aren't. Which is kind of remarkable.
Well, and as if that's not complicated enough, you have before the Supreme Court a case that will determine whether the provision of the Voting Rights Act that allows or requires the creation of majority-minority districts will stand judicial scrutiny or not. If the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do that anymore, will the court do that in time to affect the districts in 2026?
That's the million-dollar question, because if it's not done by the early part of next year, most of these states have filing deadlines that would be in February, March, April. So there wouldn't be enough time. If the Supreme Court, as it often does, saves its most high-profile cases till June, definitely too late for 2026. If they decide to sort of fast-track it and get it out in January, well, then it could be in enough time to impact 26.
So everything we're talking about here has never happened before. So let's stipulate that.
Let's stipulate that.
But there's also something else that's never happened before. I did a piece, wrote a piece about the midterms a few days ago, and I posted it on my Substack. And the first reader comment that came literally said, "I just hope we can have a free and fair election," which is not something that you would have spent a lot of time worrying about previously. But now And probably in this room, there are people who wonder, will there be a free and fair election in 2026 or not? What's your answer to that?
I am still optimistic that yes, that will be the case. The one nice thing about our system, which can be frustrating sometimes, is that it is still a state, and in some cases it's counties or precincts, right? This is incredibly diffused, the way that we run elections. In some ways, the good news is it's very hard, when people talk about rigging an election or preventing an election, it's you have to go to the heads of, in some of these states, like 60 counties, right, to go ahead and do that. So it is not as easy as simply saying, the federal government coming in and saying, guess what, we've changed it and election day is no longer happening.
Yeah.
I do think that watching this next week, right, we have polls open in New Jersey and Virginia. We have elections in a lot of states for some high-profile races. Watching those and seeing what happens there, I think, is going to be critically important. And there are ballot initiatives in states, continues to happen, that would roll back. So it's not like, will there be elections?
Yeah.
Yes, there'll be elections, but roll back some of the ease at which people can, say, turn in a mail ballot or vote absentee or use a student ID to vote.
Yeah.
And those are legal ways of, sort of boxing in what the voting population will look like.
So let's pause there for a second, because you mentioned the elections that are happening this year, the governor's race in Virginia, the governor's race in New Jersey, the race for mayor of New York City. Those have traditionally been kind of early testing grounds for the midterm sentiment. How are you reading them now, and how are you going to read the outcomes?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So the reason I like off-year elections is that they're really are level set for this year. We've been spending most of this year looking backwards, talking about what happened in 2024. What percent of the vote did Trump get in this district? What did Kamala Harris get? What did Kamala Harris's campaign do wrong? What did Trump's campaign do right? We've been spending a whole lot of time in 2024. It's not 2024 anymore. Now voters have a chance to say, okay, well, we voted a certain way then, but guess what? Now this is really a referendum on how we think the person that got elected is actually doing. And so what I look for, it's not just simply who wins. They've been very predictive in this, at least in the last two midterm elections. These, not New York, I'll get to that in a minute, but New Jersey and Virginia. If you look at the turnout, you can really get some sense for which party is engaged and which party is a little depressed. Now, what's different about this year from, say, 2017, remember at this point in 2017, there was the hashtag resistance, there were the pink hats, there was all this energy among Democrats about, we got to get to the polls, we got to vote, this guy is, what is he doing, who is he, this is wrong. Now you have a Democratic Party where they're still not happy with Donald Trump, there's still protests, but they also really don't like Democrats either. And Democrats don't like themselves, okay? Democrats are like, they need to go to, who was the guy in Saturday Night Live who did I'm good enough? Stuart Smiley, smart enough.
Smiley,
Yeah.
George Smiley. Yeah.
People like me, but they don't like. So much of what we're seeing in DC right now with this government shutdown, remember, that is driven in large part by pressure from sort of rank and file Democrats who say, what are our leaders doing? They're feckless. Why don't you fight back more against Donald Trump? So there is this worry among Democrats that their weak party brand and this intra-party friction may have an impact on turnout.
And that intra-party friction is framed almost perfectly in the off-year elections this year, because you have two moderate Democratic women running well in Virginia and New Jersey, Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill. and you have a socialist running in New York, Mamdani, and so the tension between the moderate wing and the progressive wing is framed perfectly in those 3 elections.
Well, Donnie against Cuomo is really the perfect frame, because we're seeing this now in a lot of races, in that this sort of beginnings of these primaries are starting, especially in the Senate side, and the Mamdani Cuomo, don't want to make it, don't want to overstate it, but young, progressive, outsider, going to shake up the system, old, traditional establishment. And that debate is playing out in places like Maine, in the Senate race there. We're going to see it in places like Michigan, perhaps. We have maybe in other House and Senate races on the Democratic side. It reminds me a lot of where we were back in 2009 and 10 with the Tea Party.
Yeah.
And Democrats are having something of that moment.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, New York is not a bellwether for anything. New York's a fun city. It's really cool. I like it. But it's not exactly your most representative sample of voter, right? It's this is it's a Democratic primary is what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And that's fine. So let's take it as that.
Yeah.
But let's not
What you're really saying is maybe pay more attention for broader lessons.
For broader lessons,
Virginia
New Jersey and Virginia are your broader lessons. And then for the intra-party, Cuomo's not a perfect stand-in for the establishment, but he is. Mamdani is not the perfect stand-in for the progressive outsider, but he kind of is. So that's a nice sort of litmus test there that could tell us something about not just what 26 could look like, but if this energy continues, are we going to play this Tea Party on the left thing all the way out like we did with Republicans, and it goes Tea Party through the midterms, and then, here comes Donald Trump.
Because in that sense, it took the Republicans several years to figure out how to deal with the Tea Party phenomenon. Do we fight it? Do we co-opt it? Do we embrace it?
Exactly.
And maybe the Democrats are in a similar position now with the Mamdanis of the world. Do we fight them? Do we embrace them? Do we co-opt them? And there's no easy answer to those questions.
That's right. And who it is, I remember talking to voters, especially Republican voters in 2015, where I was like, so you're going to vote for Trump? What's going on? This is a big risk. They said, well, you know what? All the smart people told us you have to vote for John McCain because he's the only one that can win. He didn't win. You got to vote for Mitt Romney. I wasn't excited about Mitt Romney, but I did it because you got to tack to the middle. You can only win if you tack to the middle. We didn't win. So I'm going to take a flyer with this Trump guy. What's the big deal? So we lose. We've lost the last 2. Now we can try it with something really new. And, Democrats are sort of in this place too, oh my gosh, we keep putting up the same people and getting the same terrible result. Let's just try it.
Yeah. So Democrats have a lot of problems. This is one, identity crisis, right?
Yeah.
They don't have a national voice. They don't have a national agenda. Their fundraising is lousy.
Well, no.
No?
They're okay.
Are they?
Yeah.
The RNC's got 20 million
more. I know,
more.
but the individual candidates are fine.
Okay.
Like Maggie Sherrill and Spanberger and the people that need the money have the money. But you're right, the campaign committees themselves, Trump himself has raised.
Yeah.
You're right, is a juggernaut.
So that's the bad news for the Democrats. The good news is a midterm election like this may not really be about them. It may be about the other guy, the guy. There's a one dominant figure in American politics. His name is Donald J. Trump, and everything is about him. So that's one factor. The second factor is he also turns out to be the best voting generator for either party.
Exactly.
Including the Democrats.
In a midterm, he's a great generator for Democratic turnout. Not so great generating Republican turnout. And this isn't new either. This is always the challenge for a president, is to turn out his winning presidential coalition
Yeah.
in the upcoming. Now, the Obama coalition was great if Obama was on the ticket,
Right.
but they didn't show up in 2010 and they didn't show up in 2014, even as Obama would go and stump across the country. You got to get out and vote. You got to get out and vote. So, yes, midterm elections are a referendum on the party in power. And the one time we've seen something a little bit different was in 2022, because given where Biden was, high inflation, unpopular, basically at the same numbers where President Trump is right now. But two things happened. One, the Dobbs decision re-energized a Democratic base that up until then was very, very depressed and unlikely to turn out in the election. And the second is the Democrats have something now of a built-in lower turnout election advantage. When I was coming up in politics, Republicans had that advantage. Republicans were the party of older, they had older, well-educated, wealthier voters, and those voters tend to be the most active. They show up in every single election. Well, Democrats now are attracting, who do they do best with? White, college-educated voters, especially women. And those folks are going to show up in midterm elections, they're going to show up in off-year elections, where Trump has succeeded, and this is a big reason why the polls, we talk about, are the polls right, are the polls off, but where the polls have gone the most astray are when Trump's on the ballot.
Right.
Because he brings in all these people that are not normal voters. They don't pay attention to politics. They don't show up in normal elections. And so turning those people out is really, really hard.
Yeah. The adage was low turnout elections help Republicans. Now low turnout elections help Democrats.
That's right.
So given the dominance of Donald Trump and the controversy over the Trump-led redistricting push, which takes the quiet part and says it out loud,
Yeah.
we're going to redistrict so we can get more seats, period. Like, no apologies.
Yeah.
What's the potential for backlash?
Yeah.
You mentioned the president's approval rating. There was an AP NORC poll 2 weeks ago that has approval rating of 37%. These should be fatal numbers for his party. The controversy over redistricting would have created a huge firestorm any other time.
I know.
By the way, we're going to get to the government shutdown in a minute. That isn't even moving
Nope.
things. So anyway, the question is, what's the potential for
Yeah.
a backlash? He's gone too far. This is too much chaos.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, and yet everybody's playing in it now. So
Yeah.
no one has the moral high ground. Now, the campaign in California, what they would argue is, well, at least we said, we took it to the voters.
Yeah.
So this wasn't just legislators sitting in a back room and drawing lines. We told you exactly what we were going to do. We showed you the exact maps, and you voted on it. And that's fine.
And we told
Virginia
you
will be the
why
same.
we're doing
We told
it,
you
too.
why we're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
it. And so there is something there.
Yeah.
But, it gets a little shaky as well. So there is one of these now everybody does, sort of pox on both houses piece. The other risk that Republicans are taking, especially in a place like Texas, is they're looking at the 2024 data and making assumptions that that's going to play out for them in 26, especially with Latino voters. And in fact, we did a chart. If you match up the districts in Texas, the new districts, how Trump did there in 2024, and then compare it to how he would have done in those districts in 2020, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
And so those 5 seats
Yeah.
may not be sitting there.
So if you're a Texas Republican and you're assuming you can replicate 2024 results
Exactly.
in new districts and they revert to 2020
And they go to
performance,
2020, then you're only picking up 2 or 3
Right.
instead of picking up
so
5.
your grand plan has failed at
Right.
that point.
I mean, I guess your plan would be, well, at least we got something,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
So the amazing thing is we've been talking for half an hour and we haven't even talked about the government shutdown.
I know
As we
it.
speak, the federal government is shut down. In case you
We're
all
now about
didn't
to
notice.
hit for the longest period in
Right.
American history.
And everybody's shrugging. So
It's really,
impossible question to answer, but I'll ask it anyway. Is that going to matter by the midterms? Is anybody going to remember?
It's not going to matter by the midterms. It's going to start to matter now. I mean, this is why you're starting to see all this conversation about, well, we think we have a deal,
Yeah.
right? Senators are putting a thumbs up. Well, they're starting to have a deal because the consequences are, it's impossible to push the consequences back any further, right?
Yeah.
We've kind of hit the end of the road on really big things, food stamps and what is the other, just a lot of the safety net programs that we can't fund. So, the expectation is something in the next week or so is going to
Right.
happen so that the government shutdown is averted. But you're right. What did it accomplish? And one, the markets don't flinch at all.
Right.
They're just like, okay,
Yeah. They're going up.
nothing,
They've
right?
gone up significantly.
okay. So they don't care. Voters are like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who do you blame? They blame blame Republicans than Democrats, but I saw a number the other day where it was like, let's say we blame Republicans 38, we blame Democrats 34, we blame both 30.
Yeah.
Right? Who
wins?
Did somebody win in that
Yeah.
scenario?
Yeah.
I don't really see that case. But it is, you're right, you're getting at the bigger issue, which is, what does it take to move opinion in this country, political opinion?
Well, but particularly in an environment in which the percentage of opinion that's there to be moved
Is
in any
very
case
slight.
is 5
right.
to 10%.
But we thought maybe there could be something that breaks people out.
Right.
I was naive enough to think maybe COVID was going to be that issue, right? That here's an opportunity, America's going to come together, we're going to fight a virus. How great is this? We have a common enemy, but it's a virus.
Yeah.
It's not other people. Fantastic. Okay, great. We're all going to hold hands. Oh, no, we're not. This is not working. It made it worse.
You weren't the only one who thought that.
Made it
I will
worse.
just say that.
So, but you would, because I just keep thinking, George W. Bush, 9/11 happens, his approval ratings were
Yeah.
very weak. He goes up to 92%. Bill Clinton, 1998, he's getting impeached. He has a 65% approval rating. Why? Because people felt good about the economy.
Yeah.
I said, I don't like him personally, but
Yeah. Well,
I
now
feel
we're
good
in
about
this.
the economy. Now, no matter, the economy could be good, it could be bad. Your opinions about the economy are driven by your partisanship.
Right. And it's particularly hard to read now because people generally like what Trump is trying to do. They hate the way he is doing it. And I don't know how that comes out in the wash a year from now.
Right. And what it is that you're right. So some of it, and trying to get at what that is, right?
Yeah.
But there's also, it's pretty clear that more and more we do have two Americas.
Yeah.
And that the job of the parties now seems to be more of how can I make sure that my America turns out to vote and crushes their America, and then our version of America is what will be the national credo.
Right. So I want to get to audience questions in a few minutes, but before we go there, I want to talk specifically about the race for control of the Senate, because that would be a really big deal. And I think we have a slide, if we could get it back up, that shows that. And these you can look at this, because these come straight from, guess what, the Cook Political Report.
Comes from us.
The point here is that there are 22 Republican seats up. It should be a year where Democrats have some opportunities. They only need to flip 4 seats, as we said earlier, to get control of the Senate. But the number of Republicans who are even in any
know.
trouble is very small.
Very small,
It's
yeah.
5 that are even in competitive races. So which ways are you looking at to figure out if there's any chance the Senate could flip hands?
So the first place we have to go actually is Maine.
And Mark, if we could get that slide up, that would be great.
The first place we have to go
There it
is Maine. Now, Susan Collins has the distinction of being the only Republican in Congress to represent a state that Kamala Harris won. And, Maine is, and as a proud graduate of a Maine college, I love how quirky that state is. Had an independent governor, has one of the handful, actually has the Democratic congressman there, represents the most Republican district in the country, represented by a Democrat, and she's, as I said, the only Republican senator to represent a state Kamala Harris won. So this is a state that they're willing to split their tickets, which used to not be a weird thing, but it is. However, as the partisanship continues to cement, even in a place like Maine, holding on to that state in a midterm election as a Republican gets a little bit harder, especially since the last time she won election, the Dobbs decision happened, so she hasn't been up for re-election since that Dobbs decision came down. Remember, she was one of the key votes for Justice Kavanaugh, and that is certainly something they're going to talk about in the campaign. But Democrats kind of can't. They have a messy primary.
Yeah.
And if that gets messy enough and they don't beat Susan Collins, who's not easy to beat, just say that off the top, then you just throw it all away.
Yeah, because
right?
where else?
If you can't win a state that Kamala Harris won, then you're just done.
Yeah.
You have to win Maine. Then you have to win North Carolina. Now there's a place, it's a purple state, it's a state that Democrats come tantalizingly close to win, but like Lucy in the football, never quite get to kick it. But Democrats did recruit the strongest candidate they could in Roy Cooper, the former governor, still very popular. That's probably their best opportunity right now. So let's just call that net one. They've also got to hold on to 2 of their own seats that are vulnerable, Michigan and Georgia. Now, holding on, again, in a midterm election should be a little bit easier, and Georgia, Republicans have a messy primary there. But then you got to go to that red part there. You say, all right, so let's even say that they did beat Susan Collins, and they did win North Carolina.
And they did hang on, Ossoff hangs on in Georgia.
And Ossoff hangs on, and Michigan they win. Now you got to find 2 more.
Right.
So Ohio, a state that in the old days, that was a toss-up state. It voted for Trump by double digits. Iowa, another double-digit Trump state. Texas, another double-digit Trump state. Now, the one thing that Democrats do have going for them is they have candidates in all of these, including in Ohio, Sherrod Brown, the former senator, big primary in Texas, big primary in Iowa. But, if it is the worst thing you can do in a midterm election, especially if you're the out party, is not contest seats. Because if a big wave comes, at least you have people in the ocean swimming.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is
stay on the beach.
Just sit on the beach. So they've got a lot of candidates.
Yeah.
It's just how good of an environment, right? To break through, it's one thing to say, okay, we can win in a North Carolina, we can win in a Georgia. These are if all the battlegrounds go Democrats' way, can you overcome double digits? And, do we just have to say that the days of Ohio and Iowa being even considered competitive go away in the same way that Colorado used to be considered competitive, and we have that in solid. Illinois had Republican senators for a good long time. New Mexico did. Oregon did. Virginia did. They're all in solid Dem.
Yeah.
So we just now, the handful of swing states become the battleground for the Senate. And if gets really hard, if you're looking for 3 seats, there aren't many places to get them.
Yeah. So don't stay up on midterm election night.
Probably
holding your
not,
breath.
unless it's a humongous wave and something happens that we can't predict.
So last question before I turn to the audience. Any House seats in particular that you're interested in that you're going to be paying attention to as bellwethers?
Oh yeah, that's a good
Canaries in that
question.
coal
I
mine?
love bellwethers. You know, Kansas, the 3rd District always used to be my bellwether. Now it's boring. Come on, you guys, give me something fun. No, because that was a really good shot. I think these majority Latino districts, again, especially in Texas, California, Democrats can't win control of Congress without winning those seats back. And so we're going to, this is not the perfect place to test Trump's hold on Latino voters because, again, it's a midterm election. It'll be really much more important to see what happens in 2028, to see whether we've seen a realignment, a true realignment of Latino voters, or whether that was just a Trump specific success. But
And those handful of New York State
yeah, those are important too. But
districts?
I think there are plenty of places to watch. But as I said, I really like the Latino districts because we're going to get some insights into just where we'll have, now 8 years of trend to look at to see, okay, where is this headed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, your turn. If you raise hands, as you just did, one of the student leaders will come around with a microphone. If you could stand up so we can see and hear you better, that would be awesome. And if a question really is a question, it has a question mark at the end, and that would be good too. So anyway, fire away.
Will Steve Bannon and his cronies figure a way to get Trump on the ballot in 28?
What do you think?
I
yeah,
sorry,
you couldn't hear.
The question was, will I will try to be literal. Will Steve Bannon and his cronies find a way to get Donald Trump on the ballot in 2028? I think no. I think this is a tease right now. I think that even for Trump, it would be a bridge too far. I think he's almost said as much this week.
He did. Yeah.
And I think if you think that you're having a wonderful second term and you're going to go on Mount Rushmore, why would you want to tarnish your legacy by starting a fight with the Supreme Court you're probably going to lose? But I've been wrong about Trump so many times before.
Yeah.
So now you have to answer the question.
No, I absolutely agree with you, and I think some of this is, Bannon likes to do a lot of this, that is part of the deal, which is you got to outrage all the time and get people to talk about the outrage, and it is part of the superpower. And he stays. If Trump remains on top, then Bannon also remains part of the inner circle, right? When Trump goes, there's no guarantee that Bannon has any influence. So I think that's a piece of it. But it also fits back with the bigger theory of the case for the president and those around him, which is this is now Trump's party, right? There is not a Republican party, there is a Trump party. And whether it is the name Donald Trump on the ballot in 2028 or someone else, they will come from Donald Trump. And he will endorse that candidate, and they will be the nominee.
Yeah, there was a chance a few years ago the party might snap back to traditional, Ronald Reagan, Bob Dole conservatism. That's gone.
It's gone.
That's gone. Yeah. So, others, we can go right there, and then we'll go back there.
Get to the, or the.
Yeah, keep your hand raised. Right here. Sorry, I failed here. Okay, we'll come to you next.
Okay, so I wonder, is there any chance, I'm looking at the government standoff, is there any chance that a group of Democrats could get together and and say, okay, we're going to agree and break the standoff, and all of a sudden, I think that's kind of what Liz Cheney did when she had that, investigation of Trump. She was trying to make the United States see what we really are about and what's important.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that that would work?
I appreciate your sentiment. I really do. I think Democrats, look, part of the reason this stand-up has gone on as long as it has is that both sides believe they're winning. And if you think you're winning a fight, you don't give up the fight. And for Democrats, it's more than just we won the fight to show we'll stand up to Donald Trump. It's also, we've put healthcare on the front of the, if not the agenda, at least it's what people are talking about, right? We've put it in the spotlight, and Democrats do very well if an election is centered on healthcare. It's the one issue where they actually have an advantage over Republicans. Oh, but that doesn't answer the question about why will they end the standoff. Look, there are Democrats doing just that. Jeanne Shaheen from New Hampshire, Democrat, is working very diligently with both sides to try to find a way to, as they say in Washington, to land the plane. So there are people in the Senate who do that, who are doing that job. There will be an end to it. It cannot go on indefinitely. But this idea that we're going to, the two sides are going to be like, gosh, you know what? That was really dumb. We shouldn't have done that. We won't do that again. I don't know that that's the lesson they're going to take from this.
Go ahead.
Ever since Obama, the Democrats really haven't had anyone to step forward who could generate any kind of energy
Yeah.
for the last 10 years. Any thoughts about why that has happened
Yeah.
for 10 years?
Yeah.
And do you think anyone will step forward soon, as the Democrats really need someone right now who can generate energy in the party?
Yeah. So I covered, when I came into politics, that was the frustration of Republicans who'd say, why can't we find a Ronald Reagan? We just need to find a Ronald Reagan, right? This isn't Ronald Reagan. This isn't Ronald Reagan. Nobody at that time would have said, you know who your Ronald Reagan's going to be? Donald Trump, right? And they're like, that's who it's going to be. That's the guy who's going to inspire, like literally the highest turnout we've seen in 100 years. So some of it is appreciating that it is really hard. Each one of these people that we talk, when you talk about Bill Clinton, when you talk about Obama, when you talk about Trump, these are people that are unique. Sometimes they're called generational talents. It is a difficult thing. So very few people can hit that mark, and it's why, you know, I appreciate anybody who wants to get into the arena and run for office. I applaud them. A lot of people think that they watch these guys on TV and women on TV and think like, I can run for president. How hard is it? I'm really smart. I know a lot of things. And then they get in there and they realize, oh, this is a lot harder than it looks. And Democrats, there's not a dearth of Democratic talent out there. There are governors, there are senators, there are plenty of people. My theory on presidential elections, though, is we can't know who that person's going to be until, one, we have a better understanding of what the electorate wants. You have to be the candidate that meets the moment, right? So there are plenty of people that look good on paper, but if the election is about we're in a time of war or we're in a recession, you want a different president than if, I don't know, the economy's doing great or we're dealing with this health crisis or something like that. So I think you have to go to that. The other is sometimes people who on paper seem, when I talk about people on paper who look bad, but then or look great, but then they turn out to be bad. There are also people that you hear about the very first time. Like I remember hearing about Pete Buttigieg. I was like, you're the mayor of South Bend, Indiana.
You're the
Okay.
gay mayor
Yeah.
of South Bend, Indiana. Yeah.
That's adorable. You're gonna run for president?
Yeah.
And I remember I interviewed him in the early days. I was like, this guy is really impressive. Yeah. And I thought, well, you know, if he gets on the debate stage, he'll be able to like,
Yeah.
you know, he can raise his profile and he can do something with that later on. But I would not have said, oh, and by the way, this guy's going to make it all the way into the top tier.
I remember when David Axelrod was going around Washington telling people, there's this state senator in Illinois
Right, named Barack
saying Obama, you won't believe how great he is. And everybody goes,
Oh, right.
okay,
Yeah,
David,
I'm sure
thank
it's
you.
great.
We'll see
Right.
you. Yeah.
Right.
And he was right?
Yep.
So, but who knew?
Yep.
Way in the back there, and then right there next.
Do we get, yeah, I want to get our student right here.
Hey, with all the redistricting that's going on, we're taking aim at the most moderate members of Congress. You know, Republicans in California and Democrats
Yep.
in Kansas probably have more in common than
Yep.
they have apart.
Yep.
So when we do this, we also spread out more Republican votes in California and more Democratic votes in Kansas. Do you see this bolstering the problem solvers, or do you see this dismantling the problem
Yeah,
solvers?
unfortunately, you're exactly right. It dismantles all of it. You know, I'd been saying this for a while, two things. One, you know, no party, at least since 2006, no party's been able to get into the majority without defeating the moderates of the other team. And then the same people come to Washington and go, oh, woe is me, how come no one wants to compromise? I said, because you killed them. You killed all the compromisers. That's how you got in the majority. They're gone. So there's that. And then I think the one interesting thing about where we sit at this moment is it is an opportunity for us to rearrange what our ideas of moderate mean, or rethinking how we describe politics, because for so long, you know, it's just on this continuum, right? There's like, here's the right, here's the left, here's the issue set. Where are you on abortion? Where are you on taxes? How are you on this? And then you get described as that. And there we go. We have our conservatives, we have our liberals, and then these are the moderates based on that. But I think what Trump has shown, and I think we're going to see more and more candidates do that, is a more heterodox look. So it's less like this and more like three-dimensional. And in fact, if you look at typologies, and there's a great one that this group Echelon has done. They're a Republican polling firm, but when they did this very big sample of Americans, and they asked them a whole bunch of questions about a whole bunch of issues, right? And where they positioned themselves on those issues. Again, social, cultural, and economic. What you find is the biggest quadrant in American politics are people who are more fiscally liberal and socially conservative. That's the big circle. And so that's why Trump makes so much sense, right? Right? We thought of conservatism as, well, conservative means less government. These voters are like, I kind of like having that. I like my Medicare, I like my Social Security, I like all these other government programs. In fact, I think government should be doing more, or I think we should have higher minimum wage. Well, that's a Democratic talking point. That's not a Republican talking point. But for what we thought of as a moderate Republican was someone who is going to be also culturally moderate on climate, on guns, on abortion, on gay rights. That's not necessarily where the biggest quadrant is. So we have to sort of reimagine as well what it means to be a moderate. So can somebody who's really conservative on social issues but is siding with labor unions, are they conservative or are they moderate?
Ask Josh Hawley. That's who you
That's
just described.
exactly who I just described.
Yeah. It also turns the world of Ronald Reagan upside down.
Right.
The 1985 world was the opposite of what you just described. So I think we had one. Let's go right here, and then I'll probably have time for just one or two more, and we'll come there next.
Sorry.
No.
If Obergefell is overturned next
Yeah.
June, what impact do you think that could have on the midterms?
Yeah, well, I don't know that it would be, but it's a very valid question of that. If there were Obergefell, the gay marriage decision, if that were overturned, what would that do? You know, when the Dobbs decision came down, that was certainly a seismic political event. I think it was less seismic than Democrats had hoped. They thought that it was going to continue to pay dividends politically. Gay marriage is more popular than abortion is, which is kind of remarkable to think, like where we were 20 years on that question and where we are now. So it is one of the few areas that you can see more crossover support than for an issue like abortion. So I do think its immediate impact would be, for all the talk we just had at the very beginning about are Democrats enthusiastic, are young people going to turn out, what about, that would absolutely be a motivator.
Right there on the end, and then we'll have one last question right there. So if somebody can bring the microphone to this row right here. Yeah. Thank you. No, here,
right
here, right there. Raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand. Thank you. I've lost control. I don't know.
Thank you for being here. I have a little of a wonky question. There has been some discussion on both sides, especially with the Republicans, about bringing back the midterm convention, which we used to have in the 20th century. So I wonder, what is your take on if this is actually going to happen, and if it is, if it's going to have any impact, and if it will, then who it will benefit?
Yeah, great question. So the question is about a midterm convention, that Donald Trump wants to have a midterm convention. Apparently he wants to have it in Vegas, because of course you have it in Vegas. And he's also going to bring, you know, the UFC to the White House in June. And it's going to be, that's the one thing. My son never asked me anything about, like, can you get me passes to this? Or, you know, he's never been like, can you get me to the White House? Or he's like, hey, can you get me tickets to the UFC thing at the White House? Don't you get those? I was like, no, I don't get those. No. Anyway, you know, on the one hand, you're like, why would you what's the point of doing a convention? Because to Jerry's point, if you're, you know, when you're the president and your party's in charge and overall you have not a great approval rating, you don't want all the attention, right? So all the attention will be on, oh my gosh, look at these guys, they're so out of touch, and they're talking about all these things that nobody is buying.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is out there complaining about something.
Right, and so it just highlights all of the challenge they have. At the same time, like, this is Trump's genius, is like no PR is bad PR. We all remember the Madison Square Garden event that every pundit on TV said, oh, this is going to be a disaster. This is terrible that he did this, right? I mean, one of the most important rules, at least for most politicians, is just do no harm, right? Like, don't push it. Just be safe. Don't do that interview. Don't say something off the cuff. Certainly don't have a convention where you're not going to be able to control all of the messaging of it. That's not how he operates. He wants to be driving the conversation every single minute of every single day. Now, the one thing he can do, and this is, look, Republicans are understandably frustrated about the fact that their one big piece of legislation, the big beautiful bill, is not popular. And a big part of the reason it's not popular is that they passed it and then they didn't talk about it. But Democrats have been talking about it a lot. And Democrats filled that vacuum at calling it, right? It's cutting Medicare, it's giving tax breaks to billionaires, and that's how it's defined. Still, a lot of people don't know what it is, but they've heard about Medicaid cuts and billionaires. The one person who could rebrand it is Donald Trump, right? Rebranding it. The congressional Republicans have rebranded it the Working Families Tax Cut, which he could rebrand it something else.
Yeah.
Right? You can just see him doing about, like, we're in Vegas, all these waitresses are up here because no tax on their tips. Woo! You know, everybody who's no tax on tips, come on up. Why not? Right?
You may have just, if he's watching, you may have given him an idea.
I know.
Coming to amphitheater in Vegas soon. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, you know, they do want to bring an actual convention to Vegas. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah, swing state. So last question right there.
Senator Dole was fond of telling the story of Pat Nixon's funeral when he was still in the Senate, and he took a congressional plane to honor Mrs. Nixon, and he invited George McGovern to go with him. And you know, that would never happen again today. And after the funeral, the press surrounded McGovern and said, "Why are you here? Why are you attending the funeral of the wife of the man whose dirty tricks defeated you for the presidency?" And McGovern said, "You can't keep on campaigning forever."
Yeah.
And I take it, sadly, that, and maybe social media is partly to blame, but apparently we've reached a point where you can keep on campaigning forever.
So I think that is much of that is very true. The one reason I keep doing what I'm doing, though, is I do get to meet a lot of candidates, especially for the House. And as I said, I have respect for anybody who gets into the arena, even if it's for city council. It's not an easy thing to do, especially in this time of social media, to put yourself out there. What I'm amazed by is I always start by asking them, why do you even want to do this? You realize the approval rating of Congress, like serial killers have a higher approval rating than you do, right? Like, why would you want to come to this place? Everyone's going to hate you and be mad at you. And they all say a version of, I want to, like, if not me, then who, right? It's a duty to do something like this. It's a sacrifice, but I feel like I have something to give and I want to give back to my country in this way. Now, you may disagree with them on every single thing they stand for, but that they still do that. So I do think that part is still there. And I think there still are relationships that don't get talked about a lot, but are there. Now, the problem now is there are relationships, but they can't say them out loud, right? Because if you found out that my best friend was that person, right? That we hang out and we have drinks and we have fun together, like, how could you dare be with this person? They're trying to destroy democracy. So in the old days, it was a sign of respect. Now it is seen as like traitorous. And that is the bigger problem. So I think people are having these cross-party relationships, but they can't talk about it as much. Yeah. And that's really sad too.
That's either an uplifting or depressing point on which to end, but we have to end.
Yeah.
And mostly uplifting.
Mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look,
Thank you,
Amy is one of the wisest, smartest, and really one of the nicest people in Washington. And I really want to thank you for coming out here.
Thank you. This is great.
And I want to thank all of you for coming out, because, I mean, honestly, this is what it's here for, right? This is what the Dole Institute exists for, and it's to have conversations like this and to have sane and civil conversations. And that's you guys, that's not us. I mean, we can do this all day long because it's what we do for a living, and we're crazy. But anyway, thank you all for being here, and please, as Audrey said, come on back.
Yeah,
anyway, thanks.
That was great.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Okay, sir.